Okay, well, we really are at the closing of today's session. And if you will go to the next slide, this is really an opportunity for not only our summarizing what we're covering today, but also we're going to ask you to give us some feedback in terms of what your takeaways were from today's session. We're going to produce a word cloud using Slido. And also another shot at asking some questions. Any questions that we didn't cover, we will put up the agenda again for tomorrow. Today we've been describing AWP and Lean. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the opportunities for collaboration and working in our program. So if you go ahead and go to the next, we'll jump into the golden nuggets here. Go ahead. These are summarized. These all came, these again were our thought leaders who helped produce it. Let's go through the next slide. So this is what came out of AWP Essentials in terms of the golden nuggets. Those of you who are in a Lean session, of course, you can come back and get the recording so you see what you missed. But here's the summary. And we do have a couple people here in terms of Jamie and John. Would either of you like to touch base on these in terms of the highlights?
Just one thing to share, Bob, connected to Amy's talk there, in particular, where she mentioned related to her transformation framework that culture is very important. And, you know, we made a tie relative to that with our AWP Lean conversation throughout the day. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah. John, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think things have been covered pretty well, Bob.
Okay. If you'll go to the next, we do have out of the Lean session, Lean's a system change, Lean operating system, its whole approach towards eliminating waste, continued improvement, its respect for all of the elements. They see it as a big room, so there's room for people working on AWP and Lean to coordinate together. The power of many exceeds the power of one is absolutely for certain. And like I said, we'll be focusing on that particular aspect tomorrow. So if we go to the next, this is the AWP and SWOT analysis, really focused on creating the right environment that supports collaboration. They really looked at very candidly what the weaknesses are, but really looked at strongly at the strengths and really focused on the opportunities here. If you go to the next. Industrialization, modularization. I know Michael is still with us. Do you want to talk about the main highlights of these golden nuggets?
Well, I can. It looks awful verbose compared to everybody else. But anyway, we do have aspects of both AWP and Lean in the fabrication yard. It does require buy-in, commitment, and a collaborative approach. It's a top-down driven thing. The owner tells you that you need to do it. You can never start too early, as I mentioned there. And as John Fish mentioned too, start the job with assuming a modular approach as a stick built. You're always better off. And modularization really hits all aspects of a project, and therefore you really need to be tied in with everybody very early, a lot of collaborative effort. And the owner is a major player in a module project. He needs to get on the ball and do things early too. And the majority of the decisions impacting a successful module job occur well before FEL3 or FEED. So anyway, that's.
Okay, thank you. We go to the next. I know Peter is with us. Peter, do you want to talk about the most important items here on the list of golden nuggets from your presentation?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Thanks for staying up extra late for this.
That's okay. Excuse me. I mean, for it to work effectively, I believe it has to be at the core of your organization. and really don't undertake DFMA, for example, for the sake of it. It has to add value. In the UK, it is more common from what I've seen in other areas, Canada and Australia, my most two recent experiences. Allow the contractor to definitely be involved in the design stage earlier, but as I said, that's a conundrum in itself if you're in a competitive pricing environment. To look after the workers, design work itself with the workers, with the optimum method of undertaking that work in mind, have a plan for every person and a plan for every part, and make sure you design work to fit the worker and their physical range. Is there another slide there, maybe?
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, it's just repeating what I said earlier. In a DFMA environment, field work should only be the assembly of modules and kits of parts to form complete structures or systems. I've talked about designing work with ergonomic principles. Balancing work, I mean, most manufacturing environments have a balanced production facility, so there's no waste between the steps. Try and add value at each step of the project value chain. That means that the customer is the next step in the process, so always have that in mind, and target much fewer on-site operatives who will then carry out safer, more productive and simpler assembly tasks for a shorter period of time.
Right.
So yes, knowing and satisfying customers' needs and requirements, look after the people, challenge and change a poor image of construction, and ultimately to bring a high degree of certainty what we do. That should be it.
Thank you. So Amy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you this as my nugget. If
Good.
productization is already happening and you know that it is, because you've seen, I've given you some examples of MEP guys that are already productizing and big owners that want products and are doing it themselves. What things do you have in place right now that you're not even thinking about productization in the framework? So think things like target value design. If you're asking for estimates on trade-centric type stick-built stuff, that's not happening anymore, you know, like, and then you're kind of painting yourself into some, I always say if you wash a red sock with a white shirt, you get everything pink. It's really hard to go backwards, right? So I just think if your current frameworks never think about productization and the way people should be doing things before there's a project, you probably aren't thinking in the way in which the world has moved. Not moving, has moved. So if you're doing the same process for kickoffs and bidding and RFPs and responses that you did 10 years ago, it's probably not gonna fly anymore. And so think about it from that perspective. Keep asking yourself how someone's gonna wipe you off the face of the earth, because it's coming. And I think we should keep asking ourselves that in business every single day. And you should be afraid if you're not changing at this point in the world, because it's converging.
We all don't want to end up being anvil salesmen.
No, I don't want to either. You know what I mean? So I think we have to keep pushing internally and externally at all of our companies.
Right. Well, thank you. Let's go to the next, and we're going to ask the 90 or so of you that are still with us to give us some input in terms of what you thought you were taking away from today, major points. And if you go to the next slide, we'll go to Slido. Stephen? So what highlights or golden nuggets of information are you taking away from today? And if you start entering your answers to Slido, this will build us a word cloud. And again, how the word cloud works is the words that are most often used will be in the larger size in the cloud, in the photo at the end. We'll leave this open for a while. Now we're beginning to see it. Give us just a couple more minutes. Okay, well, thank you for your input. Let's go to the next segment here and see if you have any outstanding questions for any of the people who remain here. Let's just open that up. And again, if we'll go to Slido, we'll take any questions that people have that haven't been covered otherwise, or a point they might want to hear reemphasized. And again, this is how you reach it. While we're waiting, do any of our panelists have any thoughts or comments that you want to add at the end here? The word cloud is interesting. We'll make that available to everybody. In fact, we may open up tomorrow morning session just by putting it back up in terms of a pretty good summary of what we talked about today.
I might
John?
jump in here. But the one thing that I didn't hear a lot of talk about, maybe we didn't emphasize it enough, and that is the degree of automation that I don't care what system you're using, the importance and the role of information management, the degree of automation, the integration of the 3D design models into the procurement systems and the material management systems. Didn't hear a lot about that. Maybe I just missed it. But I think that's something that we need to pay a lot more attention to, especially as we go more data centric, digital data requirements, digital transformation, things of that nature. I think that's going to propel us into a new world.
Okay, thank you. There's a question for Eric. Can you please mention what tool is used for the value scenarios? And I don't know as Eric is with us. I think we'll have to pass that on to Eric. Is there a single source that you'd recommend for a new person to start AWP and or Lean? What would it be? Jamie, your thoughts?
Yeah. Of course, there's the implementation resource 272 from the research team with CII for AWP. But you know, for a quick read, I always feel that Jeff Ryan's book on schedule for sale, his second book, Even More Schedule for Sale, it's a good way to get someone oriented to just some of the basics of what we're getting to in AWP and work-based planning. So it's just another place for again, sort of a quick read. Thank you.
Okay.
There's also some 3-minute videos out there on YouTube that'll show you what AWP is all about. And then, of course, there's I can't even say that word, Bob, concierge system.
Concierge, yes.
Yeah. There's that is available on
concierge.
CII. It's got a lot of really good, and then there's a primer for the education. You know, the AWP Education Committee has an AWP primer out there. So there's a lot of tools on that dashboard that are available.
Now, if you go to the CII website, go to the home page, and on the top bar, there's a place for resources. Click on the resources, scroll down a little, you will see this whole wealth of AWP information that you can begin to access.
And Bob, as we know,
Rebecca,
individuals.
I'd like to throw in the other half of that answer too, for getting
Please.
started with lean. I would
Please,
highly
Rebecca.
recommend you check out the Lean Construction Institute. They have an annual conference that's coming up in October, but they also do a number of online webinars and go-to meetings that based by region, but also a number of national ones. And they have a ton of short 3-minute videos and white papers. And my favorite is their book that kind of is general, that covers everything. And it is, it's called Transforming Design and Construction. And you can find that right on Lean Construction Institute's website.
Thank you.
Hey,
Bob, of course,
this is
people
Fernando.
come directly to you or to myself, Jamie Gerbrecht or Eric Cravella as leaders in the CBA for AWP, and we'll connect with you directly as need be through email or phone calls to share further about the AWP topic. Thank you.
Right. And thank you for putting up both websites. How can Construction Cloud be best utilized for procurement and manufacturing? And Amy, do you want to pick this one up?
Yeah, sure. So the Autodesk Construction Cloud is actually our construction suite of services and the part of the platform that actually deals with connecting the design to construction. It enables our customers to actually procure, to track, to utilize some of the the tools that we had in PlanGrid, but as well in connecting construction to procurement through Building Connected, and tracking all of those procurement all the way through connecting it to things that can be made. And I think it's already built in that platform. By the way, John Fish, I think I talked hopefully, if I didn't talk about platform and data enabling management, I failed at all. Don't tell my boss, because in reality, that's what the Autodesk platform is, to give you that,
Right.
and analytics from the construction cloud, not just from the construction side, but also from the manufacturing and the operate side. So I definitely think that the construction cloud needs to be, if you're thinking about connecting tools that designers use as part of your platform approach, if you're thinking about connecting it to.
It just lost Amy.
Fernando?
Yeah, I was going to say, especially on the data, and there you're back. Hey, yeah, on the data side of it, I am a big believer in the fact that there's tons of data out there. It's unfortunately very underutilized. And I know from our perspective, we had to build some data integration platforms. I'm not a platform, actually. We work off the Autodesk Forge, by the way, Amy, to connect a lot of information across procurement, across vendors, because it goes to what Amy had said earlier. If you can't see that data, you can't make better decisions, and you can't even see what productization is. So it is critical, and for us in the AWP world, and actually in the lean world, it just adds a whole different perspective. So yes, absolutely, you can leverage technology to manage your procurement, your material management processes. You can visualize things a lot more effectively by combining this people, process, technology plus culture perspective.
Yeah, by the way, people don't know about Forge so much, Fernando. Like that's there for that reason. It's to build connective tissue, to connect the portfolio products with any of the partners products, things you want to build for things that you want to know. And I think the more I'm leading a Forge talk at AU coming up for that reason, right? It's like the tools by themselves you need to understand what you're trying to get from them in data. And that's why Forge is there, built in the cloud. And I think it's such a success, and there's such great things like you're talking about, why it's so important for platform and data analytics. By the way, I always say no data equals no platform, right? So like you have to actually inform it with things to get the right metrics that you're looking for across. And if everything is different every time, it's so hard to get analytics. You can get response of what happened, but you can't be predictive about it unless you productize things. And Forge is great for that.
Yeah, and also I want to go back. I had to actually drop out of one go-to-meeting session to actually get into the panel side. There was a question about the value scenarios and the capability information that you saw, and that was something that we built and donated back in 2019. And it's basically very easy to use Excel sheets. It's meant to really for companies to be introspective about what they really do, or to evaluate, to assess their current capabilities, what's of real value. We use it as a consulting tool all the time, but it really is a kind of a very simple but comprehensive tool, just built on Excel at this point. It can be automated for sure. Haven't done that, probably will do it at some point to get it into a cloud environment.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump down here because this is kind of a key question to what we've been covering. Do you see AWP and Lean as complementary or antithetical?
Oh, hey, I'll answer that one because
that's why I asked.
Yeah, and no, absolutely, they are complementary. I put diagrams together of all the ADP processes and where Lean can drop into them. There's a lot of commonality for sure, but there are distinct, unique aspects of each that we should be leveraging, right? So they are not antithetical in any way. Sometimes the applications, if you look at a blend, a project may want to utilize more Lean tools than ADP tools, and vice versa on other larger giga projects where systems and frameworks are very, very important. But I would say that the more complex the jobs, the more you will leverage both tools, right? But yes, this blend could vary project to project.
Okay. We have time for a few more. Commissioning or end of life product are excluded of the methods. In other words, are they not being covered? Like dismantling a nuclear reactor activities.
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. I can do part of that on my side.
Yeah,
definitely,
please do.
Definitely, people are productizing and looking at reuse and circular economy all the time. You cannot think that you can design it for some scenario that's going to be there permanently and then somehow think you're going to be able to take it apart and reuse it. So we used to say, data for manufacturing and assembly. I used to use design, but I would say DFMA, DR for disassembly and reuse. You need to know that and inform it up front to make certain choices for disconnects and reuse before you actually start building that and designing it. And so that is being taken into account for many of the customers that I do work with for technology swaps, for scalability, especially on digital infrastructure and data centers and things like that, but for lots of things in medical and manufacturing, because they know they're going to do tool install changes in 7 years. So they're thinking about disassembly and reuse, where they can go to smaller and smaller factories and reuse of pieces and parts. But I don't think I've done a nuclear facility, so I'll pass on that part of it.
Yeah, the question might also be, you are getting ready, the project is dismantling a facility. And yes, absolutely, advanced work packaging and Lean methodologies. And in fact, it might even be more on the Lean side on processes that would go into a dismantling strategy and how you would do that. There's all sorts of factors, of course, that go into that. But if it's also, do you design in, like what Amy said, design in for that complete life cycle, including dismantling of a project. Looked at that in housing, gosh, maybe maybe longer than that, maybe 10 years ago, on building communities that were going to be, complete the circular economy type environments, where the whole process, including dismantling, was going to happen over a 40-year life cycle. So there are these thoughts that are going into play. How much of them make it, in today's design decisions, still out there. But the fact is, it's very real, and ADP and Lean addresses them both quite nicely. And on the planning ahead, DFMA, modularization, and productization definitely will have an impact in the future of that, leading to that circular economy concept.
Okay. Amy, there's a question directly for you. Katerra's demise was a chilling to many. Can modularization actually be profitable in the end? If so, how?
I mean, I've never commented on Katerra even from the beginning, but for one thing I've always said, if they could raise, $800 million and get that kind of evaluation, we should all do that. Because at the end of the day, listen, housing is not the market that's going to make this change. It's just not. They don't have enough in the heavy productization MEP side of things with the largest, it's fragmented, right? Like, I think the serial owners that work in digital infrastructure, hospitals, manufacturing, this kind of reuse of pieces and parts like that is actually where we're seeing the most uptake, and we have for 20 years. I think, Katerra, again, if you think you're going to rebuild the tools that everybody uses on a daily basis and somehow change everyone's behavior, make them speak French, jump on one foot and spin around at the same time, that's not going to happen. So I think maybe potentially wrong market. I think they had it, honestly, people would say anytime they say reinventing everything, like you need friends in this space. This is a multi-headed monster. You can't say everyone is not doing the right thing, but you end a certain and one end, you're somehow going to overtake an ecosystem. You just can't. You have to, disruption is not your friend in this space, right? We need top-down change. Unlike Clayton Christensen said, bottom, it's not working here. It's not going to. And they had a low-cost product with thinking they're going to take over everyone. And I don't think that works. And I don't think it could ever work for anything in an ecosystem.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think they were trying to build product for the broader market. The only time I've ever seen that really work is when an owner that builds homes actually embraces that. And that's what they do. And I visited one manufacturing facility, Pulte Homes, out of the East Coast. I don't even know if they're still around, but they were making it work big time. Yeah.
So they had Devasta too. They had their own integrated precast system, and they were very successful for a very long time. So I think they had a whole supply chain management around, doing these in groups and batches. So it's like, just because you have the most attention doesn't mean you're the only one doing it. You for a lot of attention, you got a lot of attention, I think. And again, I don't think anyone here is going to tell everyone they're doing something that somehow somebody's going to disrupt all of us at one time in one place. I just don't see that happening in this spot. By the way, I always say you're just not big enough, not one company. I don't care who you are. The places that they're going to make the most disruption is on platform is in the places that are continents like Africa, where they could start fresh, like for sure, where they need lots of things quickly, not where they have to displace lots of incumbents that are here at the moment in that space, in housing at least.
Let me cover one last question, and then we'll go to we'll put up the agenda for tomorrow. As an EPC contractor, we see that clients are interested in innovation, but do not know how to integrate into their projects. Response to that in terms of, so what should they do to begin to move in that area?
I can be very harsh on this one. I think that there are some project management groups in the owner side and the business side that are interested in innovation. Unfortunately, when you get into the people who actually let the contract, they're more interested in price. So that we see as one of our biggest barriers right there. We come in with innovation, another guy comes in with a lower price, and you're out of the market. It ends up costing them more, but it sure looked good on paper on the proposal. So that's my take on it.
That's the old change order on your yacht, right?
Go in low and change order them to death.
Bob, I'd also like to see that topic being addressed on an ongoing basis, outside of specific project work, but rather owners and EPCs interacting, regularly on topics like this. So the owners are more informed on how to integrate into their projects, and there's a higher level of understanding of what those innovations are and how they apply. So, we talk a lot about getting together early, getting stakeholders in the room early. Well, that does some of it. But let's be even better informed on a day-to-day basis, because we're having that level of interaction between stakeholders. Thanks.
Okay. Fernando, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it all begins with probably what was said earlier. If you don't have leadership, engage and consistently participating throughout the whole project. As people shift in and shift out, their interest gets lost. The procurement, like Fish was saying, it takes over, and all of a sudden it goes back to transactional type environments, and doesn't have that purity of the original innovative thought. And so I think that's a little bit of the danger. We don't have that top leadership that guides the whole process from start to finish.
Well, it was good to see the number of owners that were involved in the program today, and I hope a number of them have stayed around towards the end. If we could go to the agenda for tomorrow, I do want to thank again all of our panelists and all of our speakers, and of course thank Stephen for his work behind the scenes. You don't see his face up here, but you wouldn't see anybody's face if he wasn't doing the job he's doing. So here's the agenda. We start again at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, Central Time. And we'll kick off by going into a sort of an overview session of how today went. And then we'll go into a spectrum of approaches and contract strategies, AWP and Lean moderated panel. There's two parts, how projects are planned, and the second part talks about execution. And then that will take us towards to the end of the program, where we again provide an opportunity for you all to give us input and your thoughts in terms of perhaps even some next steps here. This has been an important effort between CII and the Lean Construction Institute. We hope it's the beginning of, as they say in Casablanca, a beautiful relationship. So with that, thank you all for your time, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 8 Central. Thank you again.